Welcome to episode 24 of Try Talking Sport, hosted by me, Joanne Murphy. Thank you for tuning in from wherever you are. Whether you are an athlete, adventurer or endurance enthusiast, you have come to the right place to be inspired, encouraged, motivated and entertained by the sporting endeavours of our guests. As promised in the last episode of the show, I am endeavouring to bring you some additional shows during the COVID-19 crisis to provide you with some light entertainment, motivation and positive vibes whilst we ride out this storm together at home. So this show is a week earlier than planned and it's a cracker. In keeping myself busy, I also hosted my first Facebook Live series on the Try Talking Sport page last night with Owen Martin. You can listen back to this on the Facebook page. If, like me, you needed a good kick in the arse to stay motivated amidst the situation facing us all, then he gave us a good dose of positivity and motivation, telling us to stay out of the cookie jar, get done what you can get done in terms of training, so when things start to settle and the racing season commences, you will be ready and raring to go. Owen, who is now qualified for the 11th time to race at the Ironman World Championships, is keeping on top of his training and his routine so he is ready to race when the time comes. You can also check out Owen's episode of the podcast from the summer last year for some insight into his passion for training and racing. Tune into the Try Talking Sport Facebook page every Tuesday and Thursday evening at 8:30pm Irish time for more live chats and crack. Since last week, the Tokyo Olympics have been reinstated, starting on the 23rd of July with the Paralympics starting on August 24th. Great news for all the athletes who are preparing to deliver the performance of a lifetime on the world stage. In other positive news, and not quite the Olympics, I went for a slow, steady 5k run yesterday. First time in 8 weeks getting out for a run and first time in 6 weeks doing any sort of swim, bike or run training due to a bad case of bronchitis that finally seems to have lifted. Although I have been walking and doing limited strength work, there's nothing like getting those runners on, getting out in the fresh air, feeling the blood pump through your veins as you run along the road and just simply feel alive again. Now, I did stick within the 2k radius of my home and I did run around the green like a loon in my estate a few times to make up the distance to 5k. Next up is getting the turbo ready to rock so I can get some miles back in the legs. Our selfie isolation challenge is growing in numbers and activity. You can check it out on the Try Talking Sport website. Simply commit to completing 30 minutes of physical activity every day. There are no trackers, no targets, just you and a timer. It's a bit of fun, but more importantly, you will be supported and encouraged by others with our mini challenges posted in our private Facebook group. Now to today's episode. I was delighted to get Rosie Foley on the show. Having followed her rugby career and her success as an endurance swimmer, she is a great advocate for women in sport and a role model for many in her local community and far beyond. Born in Limerick, she moved to Killaloe in Clare when she was 7 with her younger brother Anthony, Axel Foley, and sister Orla. She is a PE teacher in St Anne's in Killaloe. Married to Pat for the last 25 years, they have 3 children, Oisín, Brendy and Siofra. Rosie's sporting CV is exceptional. With 39 international rugby caps for Ireland, she played in 2 Rugby World Cups, was captain of Munster and University of Limerick ladies rugby teams, winning interprovincial titles and All-Ireland titles with both teams. She has also represented Ireland at Tag Rugby. The rugby star turned swimmer in recent years was the first person to swim in swimming togs the 38 kilometres of Lough Derg solo in 2014 before going on to swim the 21 miles across the English Channel solo from England to France, also completing that endurance task in togs. Most recently, Rosie swam the Straits of Gibraltar in swimming togs in September of last year. She was inducted into the UL Sports Hall of Fame in 2018 and was awarded the ILDSA Pádraig Casey Munster Swimmer of the Year 2019, sponsored by John Edwards at Wild Water Adventures in Tralee. This episode of the show is filled with positivity and inspiration, whilst also tinged with a little bit of sadness. It is jam-packed with inspiration and practical positivity and a few hearty laughs along the way. We hear how Rosie's career as a sports star took off as she blazed a trail in sport both on and off the rugby pitch with her brother Anthony and sister Orla close by her side, supported by her mum Sheila and dad Brendan. We found out how she hid the plan to swim the channel from her parents. Yes, she really did. And we hear how the sudden passing of her brother Anthony impacted her life. We also hear how important it is to be resilient, to live your life to the full and to simply do your best today. Enjoy the show. Rosie Foley, thank you so much for joining us on the show. An incredible athlete based out of Killaloo in County Clare, or is it the Tipperary side?
Oh, Jesus, no, Killaloo and Clare. Would you stop? Come here.
Just double checking. So this is going to be such a fun interview with Rosie, because she joins me in the midst of COVID-19 with no access to swimming. An incredible sporting career representing club, county, province and country in rugby. And she has done some mammoth swimming. Rosie, thank you so much for joining me in the attic of your house today.
Yes, it is. 3 kids downstairs. Oisin is 14, Brendan is 12 and Shifra is 10. And they're very busy, as you can imagine, so it's nice to get a little break up here with you, Joanne.
So tell me, what does COVID-19 look like in the Foley household at the moment? You're an avid swimmer, you're a teacher, your kids are all in school. What's going on?
So what we try to do is they have their schoolwork in the morning, and it's very well set out, in fairness to all the teachers around the country, and indeed my own kids' teachers. They've been amazing. So in the morning, all the devices are confiscated by me. I have them the night before. So we have our breakfast, and then we start doing a bit of homework. Now, that can take all sorts of guises. Some of them can be stuck on different things, so we work on that, trying to get others then to actually do the work, because a lot of their work is on laptops and that. So it's trying to make sure that they're doing that and not anything else. And then, because PE is one of my subjects, particularly up to just before we got locked down, I would kind of make sure that we do about an hour and a half, 2 hours every single day. And that got us doing some of the lovely walks. We went down to Kerry for a few days, spent quite a bit of time down in Banna, in Kerry, and in Tralee, and down in Phoenix, which is where I do an awful lot of my sea swimming with Tralee Bay swimmers and that. So we got a good few days down there, and then we came up to Killaloo, and we've been doing all the local walks around here, Mylussa and Towntinna, Graves of the Leinstermen. We've had great fun and great crack doing things, yeah.
So Rosie, you have represented Ireland at rugby, but really I want to talk about some of the stuff around your swimming. How does a young girl from Limerick end up in Killaloo representing the country at the highest level of sport, and then decide to go and swim the Channel, the Straits of Gibraltar and Lough Derg?
I think if I went back just a tiny bit, my parents actually met on a boat called St. Brendan here in Killaloo. And my mother was originally from Maru, and my father is from Limerick City. And they built beside my grandparents in Clonkeen, in Lisnagry, in County Limerick. And things took off for my father in about 1976, and he was playing, first of all he played with St. Mary's in Limerick, and then he played with Shannon, which was a senior rugby team, and then from that he played with Munster, and he got picked in 76 to go on tour to Australia and New Zealand with Ireland. And his own jobs then took off very well. So he used to drive some trucks, and then he was delivering for Dewan's CNC. And then because of his profile in rugby had increased in Limerick, they gave him a sales rep job. So obviously the money got a little bit better. And my mum used to work inside in UL from time to time, inside in the shop and things like that. So we had a little bit of access to UL. And then I think they saw an opening then in the pub industry, and they were looking around, and they found Matt Hayes's pub in Main Street, Killaloo, up for sale, and they moved out to Killaloo when I was about 7. So I had made my first communion in Maru in County Limerick, but we moved out here. And to answer your question, how did the swimming come into our lives? We're right on the River Shannon at the bottom of Lough Derg here, and my parents set us a task, a competition, whatever way you want to look at it, to learn to swim, because they had this thing that we're right beside the water, you have to be able to swim. And we had Jimmy Whelan's, which was a supermarket across the road from us. And you went over there, you picked out what you were going to get once you learned how to swim. And mine was my rag doll with yellow hair and a blue dress. And we spent the summer trying to learn how to swim, mainly in the outdoor pool on the Ballina side and the Tipperary side. And then we got a bit more competent. We went down to the Pier Head in Killaloe, where Peter Lacey was also teaching people, if you like, how to swim. So kind of from there, it was kind of always on our radar. We always did something to do with water. But how did the channel swimming and that came into my life was watching a black and white movie upstairs in our pub when I was about 11 or 12, and it was on Gertrude Elderly, who turned out to be the first woman ever to swim across the English Channel. So it was there since I was about 12, I'd say, in the back of my brain, burning a hole in it.
So Rosie, is it fair to say that you were always very goal orientated growing up?
Do you know, looking back on it, probably. I think there was kind of that and a bit of competition because myself and Anthony, there was just a little over a year between us. I was born the 27th of October in 1972 and he was born the 30th of October 1973. So even though I would have said we were Irish twins, my father would always say you actually weren't. You know, there was 3 days in between. So actually, technically, you weren't Irish twins at all. But there was that kind of competition, I feel, kind of growing up. And I never knew any kind of, we'll say, sporting boundaries until I was about 12, which was quite interesting. And then I saw the difference between being a boy and a girl and the opportunities, really, when I'm looking back on it, that were afforded to Anthony, just because he was a boy and that I didn't get. But now, hopefully, that has changed for the better for my lovely 10-year-old daughter.
Because you did go and set up the first ever female rugby team in UL, which I believe is still going strong.
Oh, going very strong. It's fantastic to see. I was actually due to go back in there just before all this kicked off. They have gotten to 2 finals again this year, which is fantastic. So the tradition inside there is brilliant. But like rugby in Limerick and sport in Limerick is huge anyway. So it's no surprise that women's rugby is huge as well, particularly in the university.
Talk to me about growing up in a sport mad house. Obviously your dad was a well-known sportsman, and then of course Anthony's career going from strength to strength, and then you blazing a trail yourself in sport locally and internationally.
But I suppose we never looked at it like that. Like this was normal. This is normal everyday life in our house. Like we watched Dad play rugby. I remember on one occasion before we moved from Maru, Tony Ward came into the sitting room, and I remember Anthony actually going under the sitting room table. He got such a fright because we had just seen them on TV. So there was like RT1 and RT2 maybe at that stage. And next thing, the people you were watching on TV walk into your sitting room. So it was, you know, it's a bit strange, but like it was normal. It was normal. We played sport. We played whatever was on the TV. So if it was summertime, it was hurling, Gaelic football, and it was tennis. We'd go down to the Mulcair River, which was a couple of miles down the road, and it was just a very shallow kind of place with kind of rapids that you could just wade into, kind of ankle deep, and that's where you'd keep cool. Or we used to have a little those blow up little swimming pools in the front of the yard. It just depended on what was going on, and like we just went and watched Dad play, and we played ourselves, and it was just it was that kind of growing up, particularly, you know, 7, 8, 9, you know, when we came to Killaloe, then the GA really came to the fore as well. You know, there was always rugby here in Killaloe, but GA would have been quite big, and obviously then the water sports was a huge thing for my parents, for us to be able to be competent in the water. Yeah.
How did you end up pulling on the green jersey for Ireland?
that took a little while. When I first went in to see any women playing in a match, it was a mixed match. It was the 2 banks in Limerick playing in Anacotty, and my father was refereeing it. And I would say that was kind of mid to late 70s. And I always remember, you know, oh God, there's some sort of chance here for girls to be able to play rugby. It was a bit of kind of a touch mixed match. And I remember thinking, like, why can't I do that? And looking back, like I played camogie and I played Gaelic football, did all that, but nothing ever fulfilled me until I actually started playing rugby. And it's the contact, it's the freedom, it's everything that I ever wanted to do. And I actually still really, really love the game, but we love all sorts of sport in our house, but nothing ever compared to rugby for me, ever.
I'll let you in on a little secret that lots of people that are listening in won't know, but I actually played rugby myself. Played for Galwegians many, many moons ago after a couple of seasons of playing tag rugby. Yeah, I played 10 and 14, so I had the speed and I could catch the ball, but I hated tackling. I'm such a scaredy cat. But I actually loved it. But when I started taking up running, my coach at the time, the rugby coach, said, listen, you're not going to be any good to us because you're going running a marathon in New York. Your slow twitch fibres are going to be kicking in. So there's a little bit for you. I have worn the Connacht rugby jersey. A girl from Munster.
So did we play against
Connacht.
each other, Joanne? Did we play against each other?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
So yeah, some of the girls are still involved. Yeah, lots of the listeners won't know that I took my hand at playing rugby and I could run and catch a ball, which is good, but tackling not so much. I was so afraid.
And I mean, we loved it because I suppose like we played it in the front lawn and we played it inside in the house. And my own kids are, as you can imagine, being locked down, are fairly wrecking the sitting room at the best of times. You know, but you know, to me, the freedom of being able to play or do whatever sport or activity that you want to, regardless of whether you're male or female, is really, I think, what I've always strived for. That you have the opportunity, that the opportunity is afforded to you in the same way as it is to our male counterparts. Do you know?
Yeah, and 20 by 20, a huge campaign in Ireland as well. Can't see, can't be. I mean, it's so important that young men and young women see the mix of genders succeeding in sport, regardless of what that sport is.
Totally. And I mean, it is across the board. And I always feel we can do better, whether it is the whole GAA or it's the IRFU or whoever we're talking about and talking to. But like, if you look at the sports that are ingrained in our community, it's GAA. And I mean, it's all getting better. It's all improving. But for me, I always wanted it to be moving faster, always faster, you know, always getting that equality right, you know, regardless. But I do understand about the money and the advertising that's involved in all of this. But I really do, if we get commitment from government and it moves from the top down, you see real change there. That's where you see the real change.
And I also think as well that, you know, Lizzie Lee mentioned it in her episode of the podcast is, and you said it yourself, you know, it was no different for you growing up when your dad was playing rugby and you were playing rugby and Anthony was playing rugby, and that you were in a sports household, that when you grow up in that environment of where it's normal for mum to go for a 5k swim or a 5k run or whatever it is, that it's not seen as abnormal and it becomes part of daily routine. That's very important as well, that even from a government level and down the ranks, but each of us has a responsibility as an individual as well to do it from the roots up, regardless of what your sport is.
Absolutely. Like I teach here in St. Anne's in Killaloe. I'm very lucky to be in a school that's a secondary school on my doorstep. And I would often say to the first years when they come in, because, you know, you're a teacher and they're after coming out of primary school. So, you know, they kind of look at teacher a little bit different. And definitely in the early days when my guys were maybe 5 years younger, I used to say to them, look, I'll try to salute you. You'll see me going around and anything. I could be cycling, I could be swimming, I could be running. I'll try to say hello to you. You'll see me in the changing room over in the leisure centre, and please say hello. You know, and it's making it normal. Like we're all just human, you know. So we have to look after each other. We're not perfect, and I would never say that I'm perfect in anything that I've ever done. But you strive to be the best you can be, and to, just as you said, to be a role model. And you can be a role model for your own kids, for your neighbours next door, or you can take it a little bit further. It just depends on the role that you're in yourself.
Getting to the top of your game with rugby and then deciding to take on a massive challenge, 3 massive challenges really, in swimming. How do you transition from rugby player to endurance swimmer?
Swimming was always there for me. It was always a form of recovery for me. It was always something that was there in the background. Now, I never swam competitively, as I think you know, Joanne. We learned to swim here in Killaloe between the pierhead and the outdoor pool. And water safety was our big thing. So water safety, going through your safeties and your intermediates and your, you know, now your rescues, all those kind of things were really important. And that's where I first became a water safety instructor, was here in Killaloe. So it was always there. And then when I started working, and I was working for nearly 5 years, it was in St. Enda's Pool in South Hill in Limerick, and I was a full-time lifeguard there. So I was working 5 days a week there. Now, I didn't swim quite as much when I was working in the pool, because it's like everything. It's like a busman's holiday. You're tired of the smell of chlorine, for 8 hours a day. So it was kind of when I went back to college, really, that the draw for swimming really came back, because we had a few modules in swimming and life saving and that with Joanne Moles and Carmel Vikens inside lecturing us. So it was that kind of kept me, got me back into it, if you like. And like, we always swam then in the summertime here in Killaloe. So that was there. But when the rugby came calling and we were playing inside Newell, and we were called up for Munster trials, and then we played interprovincials, and then you were called into, maybe kind of Irish squad trials, if you like. It took on a different meaning for me. It was recovery, but that endurance really does stand to you. And I suppose, like, you learned about setting more goals for yourself, and lots of them were physical, but I remember like things like the mental energy, all that kind of stuff really sticks with you. And I suppose it's from there on, I really knew that I was setting myself goals. But then kids come along and you're working and you have a husband, and it's very different. But to kind of get yourself back on track, you'd have different goals. So my son Oisín was born in 2005, and I had a goal of being back playing for Ireland in rugby for the Women's World Cup in Canada in 2006. So there was always something, So my husband and my son came with us to Canada when I was playing in the World Cup. I played then for about 2007. I played with Shannon. No, 2006, and then 2007. My son Brendan was born. So kind of at that stage, then it was very busy household. It was hard to get back on track and kind of get back training and that. And I remember myself and my husband, I said to him, what do you want for your birthday? And he said, we could do it a new TV or something like that. And I said, now, if we get a new TV, what's going to happen here now is we're going to balloon. There'll be no exercise done. We're going to be sitting on those couch potatoes now and the whole lot. So we decided to get 2 bikes instead. And really that was the start of a little bit of endurance training, cross training with running, and obviously the swimming as well. And then you kind of start to enter an entirely different world of sprint triathlons, Olympic triathlons, relays, which really worked for us when you have 3 young kids. Our last little lady was born in 2010. And it was like, the one thing that kept us going was the very first relay we ever did in triathlon was Hell of the West with Limerick Triathlon Club.
Great race.
And it was a relay. And the reason it's a relay for us is we have the 3 kids there outside the pen. Mammy goes in and swims. Mammy comes out, gives Daddy the timer, and off Daddy goes, and Mammy takes over minding the 3 kids. And that is how it worked for us. And that's how things started to move. And once you're doing your 1,500 meter swims and your 2,000 swims, I was kind of going, maybe doing a bit of master swimming would be good. So I joined Limerick inside, and kind of really that was my first real taste of kind of competitive in the pool swimming. And I remember my first long course swim ever, I went with the 50 meter, and I remember absolutely being peppering myself, standing up on top of that bloody block, getting ready to dive in for a 50 meter sprint, so everybody's goals are very, very different. And I met then 2 fabulous people inside, lots of fabulous people inside UL, but 2 who I call very, very good friends of mine. Andrea Newport, she's the chairperson inside there at the moment, and a lady by the name of Fionnuala Walsh. Both were into a bit more distance. Now, Fionnuala would have been into longer distance, and by the time I met her, she had done some distance swimming herself, and kind of their influence on me inside with our coach who's now left us, John Dempsey, it really ignited a spark that had been dormant for a very, very long time. And I could see that this was another avenue or something that I could enjoy with friends and kind of chase down. So that's how that started.
You've mentioned when you were 11 that you wanted to do the channel someday. How did you make it a reality?
So the channel, I know that it was something that was there, and then it kind of, talking to Fionnuala Walsh and to Andrea, Fionnuala did a channel relay. I'm trying to think, maybe in 2012, I think. She may have done one, and I had swam Beganish Island down at Valentia Island with herself and Andrea, which was my first longer swims with the infamous Ned Denison, which you know an awful lot about anyway, because he's a huge influence in open water swimming in Ireland. I think it was opening that world of open water swimming. And like, Ned is the kind of person, anyone I've ever heard talking to Joanne about open water swimming, his name always comes up. He's one of those people who just, he's very happy to give you all the information you want. And if you're racing him, God help you, because he'll swim out over you. That's the kind of person he is. He'll help you in any way he can, but once that buzzer goes or that klaxon goes, he's gone like the clappers. And I love his attitude. I love that that's the way he is. And I suppose it was his, kind of, if you can do down around Beganish or down the side of Valentia Island, that's about 7k. Sure, listen, you can do anything, sure, why wouldn't you do Cork to Cove or any of them at all? Then Fionnuala was doing channel relay, and I remember thinking, oh God, yeah, that's good and that's interesting, and that's something actually that, I remember that, that I'd like to do myself. And then Fionnuala went, first time she did it, she was fogged out. She was one of the foggy three in about 2013, I think it was. She went back later in early October the same year and did it, finished it. She finished the job she set out to do. And it just gave me, I just had great confidence in having somebody who was such a close confidant of mine, a good friend of mine, who wanted me to succeed in doing something like that. And I think that the training just kicked in, and you've discipline from sport anyway, as you know, Joanne. If you're going to be training and you're doing something, you have a plan in front of you, you kick it off. Now, I wouldn't be doing huge mileage that lots of people tend to do, but all my training would have been between UL, our little pool over is about 18 metres in the leisure centre, and out in 2 Mile Gate, which is where I swim all year round anyway for the past 7 years or so, or thereabouts. So that was my training regime. And my 6-hour swim then was done in Kappa Pier in Kilrush over 6 hours. And I think it was April, May by the time I did that. And it was quite cool. It was well under the 16. I'd say it was probably 13 or 14. They're all the things that kind of, if they don't kill you, they make you stronger, And I heard you talking to Dee Newell and Fergal Madden as well as Ger Kennedy, and it's all those things. It's all the toughening up and the hardening up, and everybody's endurance timetable or swimming is all slightly different, and what you need to do yourself from talking to other people, and don't be afraid to listen to different opinions. I heard Dee and Fergal Madden on, and they were kind of saying, you shouldn't have any family members on the boat when you're doing the English Channel. I wouldn't have had anybody else but my husband on the boat and Fionnuala Walsh. So, I think everybody is slightly different, and, take on board different opinions and different ways of eating and different ways of training as well, So, don't ever find yourself pigeonholed in anything that you do. So I suppose I was kind of like that. We always had to, you live for today. And I suppose my parents, when we were growing up, it was always the same. You never assume that you're going to be playing the next day. And it always stuck with us. We never, I suppose, assumed that we'd be doing the same thing tomorrow. So it's not a dress rehearsal. So I suppose it's kind of give everything a go, but prepare well, really.
Very clearly you gave it your absolute best shot as well, because not only did you swim the channel, but then did you swim Lough Derg 38 kilometres as well? Can
I tell you the small bit of story that goes with this? So I decided, because Anthony was so involved with Munster at the time, I know the way that people can put pressure either on your brother as a coach or whatever, and that his sister is doing X, Y or Z. So the only people that knew that I was going to swim the English Channel were my husband Pat, Fionnuala Walsh, one of my best friends, and Andrea Newport, another one of my best friends, and you'd recognise them because they're Limerick masters. We told nobody else until the week before.
How did you hide your training?
No, it wasn't a major problem. I'd go in and I'd train before our session. I used to swim on a Monday night, so I'd go in maybe an hour before our master session and swim there. I'd swim maybe in the 50-metre pool in UL another day during the week. And then the rest of my training was in the 18-metre pool in the leisure centre, the Lakeside Leisure Centre in Killaloe, and outside in 2 Mile Gate on Lough Derg. That was it. We have 3 young kids. I was teaching and obviously my poor husband has to endure a lot. It had to just fit in with my family life. It just couldn't happen any other way. But I also knew that my mother, who I never told that I was doing it, never told her, because she would have said, you're a 40-something-year-old woman with 3 kids. You shouldn't be doing that. You're mad.
Like every typical Irish mammy.
Right, a typical Irish mammy. So I told Anthony in his sitting room above, and he said, you're slightly bonkers. And I told my sister-in-law Olive, I told my sister Orla, I told my father, because I asked him, did he want to come on the boat with us, because he loves boats here in Killaloe and that. And we never told my kids, and we never told my mother.
That's gas.
Yes.
Did it take some of the pressure off?
It did, because Lough Derg, obviously being my playground since I was 7, had never been swum from Portumna to Killaloe. A friend of mine that grew up out in 2 Mile Gate, James Lynch, I had met, I think, at the Christmas of 2014, I think, 2013, and said to him, do you know, how do you feel about swimming down Lough Derg? And he said, oh, geez, I'll train away and I'll do it. And he did it in his wetsuit. And I thought to myself, if I can swim 38 kilometres from Portumna to Killaloe, I can absolutely do anything. It's my own backyard. I can do it. Now, it's fresh water, so it's difficult enough to do it. And when you know some of the places on your way down, and you know there's 10k to go and there's 6k to go, and you're feeling tired, and you know you're 11 hours in and all that kind of thing, it's just something that I knew that if I did it, I'd definitely do the English Channel. I'd have it done. And I did the English Channel about a month later. But I always remember my father came down on the cruiser with us, and friends of ours, Melvin McNamara, Larry Ryan, all came down on the boats with us, Andrea and Fanula as well. My mother was kind of so cross, like she didn't even wait to see me finish. She went over to the lakeside hotel with Olive and the kids to feed them, because, you know, their silly mammy was doing something else, you know, that kind of a way. So, you know, Joanne, like, then you're going a few weeks later to swim the English Channel. Would you like to talk to her? Would you?
She mightn't have let you travel.
I see. Only for Anthony and Olive and my sister Orla at that time, you know, they were quite happy to mind the kids. My father as well. We got away with it. I went over a few days before we were due to swim at all, just so that I could be in my own head, really.
And I suppose that the thing that kind of comes through with everybody that I talk to that takes on these epic endurance challenges is that it was normalized for them in a way that the people that surrounded them believed that they could do it, and that you put your trust into the people that were around you that were believing that you could do it. You know, that kind of way, like whether it was people who had done a triathlon and were stepping up to Ironman, or somebody who maybe had done like a Killary Fjord swim and then decides they want to go do a bit longer, or the likes of Ger Kennedy that brought that group to Antarctica recently. I mean, you know, these are
was hoping to win the lotto to go with him, right?
Yeah. I can go and make the flask of tea.
I offered all sorts.
Yeah, you know, I suppose it kind of, when you listen to you talking about it, it just seems so normal that you would go and swim the length of Lough Derg from Portumna to Killaloe.
It was one of those things that I think, it comes, definitely, you put compartments in your brain, and I think you just go through different stages, and no different to when you're on a pitch in team sport, and that you have a job to do, or you have things to do, or you have to put it away because it didn't go very well. The last scrum didn't go very well, last line out, whatever, it didn't go well. And you learn, I think, and you do that in life anyway. Like, so anyone is capable of doing great things once you really just have to work on that mental approach, the mind. You really have to galvanize it down, because like we've had shit times, obviously, with Anthony passing away and that. And like sport, really, it comes up to the mark, but it also, sport has helped us to cope with grief like that as well. So it's all those kind of things. It's everything in life, you know, from exams when you're in school to making you stronger, to whatever your job is, to kind of galvanizing how good you can possibly be. And I suppose it's trying to take the good with the bad as well. And you're constantly trying to look after your mind and really kind of approach it should this is another 10 strokes down here, should we do another 10 and we'll do another it's that kind of thing, or that looks lovely over there, or what was the shopping list. Or when I was doing the English Channel, one of our students had passed away. So Benjamin Kickers had died. He was just 16 from leukemia. And then a colleague of mine had passed away suddenly about 6 weeks before. And I remember thinking of them as we were coming into the inshore area in France when the stars were out and you could see the phosphorescence underneath. Halfway through the channel, my husband came in to swim as they can for an hour. And I remember thinking, oh, look, here's Pat in with me. The kids are in Killaloe. Jesus, what if something happens to us in the middle of the English Channel, Mammy and Daddy, and the poor old kids are in Killaloe. So there's all sorts of things, and I think you can really, galvanize your mind. I've heard different people say, bad thoughts come in and out, but that happens in life anyway, and you do learn to galvanize yourself. You do learn to have to kind of look beyond it, even as we're here today, and you're kind of going, we're locked down, if you like, but you're not. Like, you're in a privileged position if you're okay. You're not, you're healthy, you're fine, you're doing something that's going to help somebody else, so suck it up a little bit.
You mentioned Anthony quite a bit. Such a shock for yourselves and obviously for the rest of the world when we realised that he had passed away so suddenly. Do you take strength from the pain of that grief when you're doing things like your big swims, like the Straits of Gibraltar? Very difficult for you and for Olive and for your mum and dad and everybody that was so close to him.
Yeah, the show of solidarity from everybody, regardless of whether you were into sport or not, after Anthony passed, it does give you great strength. It gives you great faith in humanity, as what's going on in Ireland now does. When I was doing the Straits of Gibraltar, it was something that I really wanted to do. I had never fundraised prior to this for anything. And this was the first time that I said, after the swim was done, I contacted the CRY Centre, which is the Cardiac Risk in the Young in Tala, and Dr. Deirdre Ward would be our cardiologist up there. So after Anthony passed, and this is, I suppose, I found out I'm very like my father this way. When Anthony passed, it's how do we get Anthony home? And when we got Anthony home with the help of Ryanair and Michael O'Leary and getting him back to Munster was very important. The next step was, so how did he die and how can we prevent us or our kids? So it's the next step, it's the next progression, it's the next goal, if you like, to that. And the Cardiac Risk in the Young, the CRY Centre in Tala, were just so helpful, so instrumental, so compassionate and kind to not just myself and my sister, but more so to my parents. And I just felt I wanted to give something back. And I had it in the back of my mind as we were swimming across the Straits of Gibraltar that when I finish this, I just would like to do some fundraising for them. And so finished the Straits of Gibraltar and contacted them that evening, and we set up an I Donate page. About 3,500 currently is what we've raised. It's just to try and give a little bit back for help. And I suppose you're thinking of Anthony, you're thinking of, the privilege that you have to be in such a beautiful place, in a position, being healthy, and being able to show that your kids and other people that, like, life goes on, you make the best of it because you don't know when it's going to stop. And sure, we all know what that's like, when you lose somebody very suddenly, that, you live your best life. It's not a dress rehearsal. So, just get on with it and enjoy it.
That's a lovely mantra to have, especially in the situation that we're in today with COVID-19. None of us know what the future holds, really, no matter who we are. You might have thought you had your life mapped out in front of you this time last month, but certainly everything is on hold at the moment. And the most important thing is that we stay at home to mind ourselves and mind our families.
It is, and it's difficult, Joanne, and it's finding, what I'm loving is that we're all using technology so much better now. I mean, we had a turbo session for the first time with our triathlon club, with Brew Triathlon Club here in Killaloe, yesterday evening, which was just amazing. And it's a great way to connect up with people, and then nobody feels isolated and nobody feels alone. And you're trying to look out for people, because, like, luckily enough, we all get a bit, oh God, this is terrible every now and again. But you unfortunately just have to switch on the news to understand the gravity of the situation. And if we can do this as my grandparents probably did and my great grandparents did in times that were a lot tougher than this, we'll be fine. It is about coming up with different ideas, trying to keep fit, and just doing your little bit all the time. Do what you're told. That's the best way to go, and let's get out of this the best way we can.
I'd love to ask you, what does the future hold for Rosie Foley in terms of sport? So ignoring all COVID-19 situations and pandemics and everything, is there something in the pipeline that you're thinking about doing in the future, or where might we see you?
Well, mostly on the side of a pitch, either a camogie pitch with my daughter, a hurling pitch or a rugby pitch or whatever it is. So yeah, no, you'll find me on the sideline of many pitches, mainly following the kids around. My son and my nephew are inside in St. Munchin's, which was where Anthony went to school. And, Anthony loved St. Munchin's. The boys love St. Munchin's, so we spend a lot of time there. For me, I really do want to do the 20 bridges at some stage in New York, in Manhattan. My husband was born over there, his relations over there, but we'd like to do it as a family holiday. And we just have to save up for it, unfortunately. So it's not going to be this year, but someplace down the track. Yeah, just a few more of those kind of swims, and that hopefully keeping fit and well. That's the hope, really, that you're trying to encourage your kids to be the best they can be, and from the sidelines or even the books at the moment, it's that kind of thing. So it'll be interesting.
And of course, it's not just on the pitch or in the water that you have blazed a trail, really, Rosie, because you have commentated and co-commentated on some of the biggest games of rugby, both on radio with Michael Corcoran, you commentated with Ryle Nugent in RTE, and you've also been on Sky Sports. That's an incredible achievement as well in itself, that you're in that privileged position to be able to do that as well, because it is a privilege to be able to do what we do.
Very much so, Joanne. I mean, those things all happened out of the blue. Our women's rugby team really started to take off there in 2013, and it was just unbelievable. And obviously the media then, got wind of the word, oh God, Ireland are after beating England, which was huge. So next thing we were, on for a Triple Crown. Next thing you were on for a Six Nations Grand Slam Championship, the whole shebang. And we weren't being covered. It wasn't being covered on our national broadcaster, and it all just took legs and took off very, very quickly. And I had been co-commentating with Michael Corcoran, and he's just a pleasure to be around. And he teaches you so much, Joanne. Because you're coming into something that you were a player and a coach from time to time, but now you're actually looking at people. But at the end of the day, because of, I think, the way that I was brought up, and I heard people, and unfortunately this is very true, I heard people saying, oh no, Brendan Foley there, he's useless there in the front of the line out, and then I heard them, obviously, in unfortunately for Anthony, it was a bit more verbal, it was a bit more on the newspaper, it was on TV. It's hard to take. So when I was lucky enough to get the chance to co-commentate or to talk about players or management or that, I always looked at it as if they were my brother, my sister, so, if they didn't have a great game, so what? It's not their day job. This is only a sport. Get on with it. It'll be better off. The stuff that you can improve on. But it's lovely to be able to mention people that over the years had been involved in women's sport, and way before I was ever involved, blazed their own trail and got us to the position we were in. And it was just on to me to pass on the baton to the next person to commentate or to co-commentate. But it had already been done because we showed it could be done. So they were doing it on the pitch, we were doing it off the pitch, and on it goes now to the next generation. And it's just fantastic to have been a part of it and to be involved in it.
And Rosie, if I could ask you, of all that you have achieved in your sporting career, what has been your proudest moment?
Oh my Lord. I do remember putting on, the jerseys really that my father and my brother wore. So I do vividly remember putting on the Shannon jersey for the first time, which was number 8. I remember putting on and I still have the Munster Interpro jersey, my Munster jersey. But it's hard to be pulling on your national jersey or Irish jersey, knowing that your dad had done it, and that the very same day as it happened, my brother was playing for Ireland against Italy when I made my debut against Spain on the very same day. So that was very, very special. That was a very special occasion, yeah.
Fond memories.
Very fond memories, yeah, because I can see it in my mind's eye when I'm talking to you about it, Joanne, because you take all those moments in and you hold on to them, because people in your family have done it, and you're lucky enough to get an opportunity to do it yourself. So you really have to just go with it and enjoy it. But realize that you hang on to your jersey for as long as you can, and you never leave anybody get an opportunity to get your jersey. And when the time comes then for somebody else to put it on, that you hope that they'll excel in it more than you did. You really hope that it's an upward trajectory all the time, that keeps moving upwards.
Well, Rosie Foley, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Delighted to finally get to chat to you. I followed your career quite a bit over the years, so delighted that we finally got to maybe not meet in person, but certainly have some cracking banter on the show. So thank you so much.
Thanks a million, Joanne.
Thanks again for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget you can get in touch with any feedback or guest suggestions, or just give me a shout by emailing me on trytalkingsport@gmail.com. That's try with an I, not a Y. And remember to tune into our live Facebook chats on the Try Talking Sport page on Tuesday and Thursday nights at 8:30 p.m. Until next time, wash your hands, stay safe and stay at home.